I knew something was wrong the moment she stepped through my door. Her smile was too wide, her voice too sweet, and the way she looked around my living room. It wasn't the look of a nurse checking for hazards. It was the look of a thief measuring the shelves. My daughter, Angela, introduced her like a miracle. "Dad, this is Claire. She'll be helping you around the house. Cooking, cleaning, making sure you take your meds. She's trained, experienced, reliable. You'll love her." I didn't ask for help. I didn't want it. At 72, my legs still carried me down the block every morning, and my mind was sharper than half the lawyers I'd worked with in my banking years. But Angela had been pushing this for months, slipping it into conversations like sugar in bitter coffee. "You're not getting any younger, Dad. What if something happens?" Something already had happened. She and her husband were drowning in debt, credit cards, a mortgage too big for their paychecks, vacations they couldn't afford. I knew because I'd co-signed once, years ago. Once was enough. Claire set her purse down on the counter like she owned the place. Her eyes flicked toward the cabinet above the fridge, the one where I kept important papers. That tiny glance told me everything. I forced a smile. "Welcome," I said. My voice came out flat, the same voice I used in boardrooms when I decided a man was lying to me, but I wasn't ready to show it. Angela fussed with her coat. "Dad, please give this a chance. Claire's wonderful. It'll give me peace of mind." Peace of mind. That was her phrase. Funny how peace of mind always cost me something. That first night, I stayed quiet, watching. Claire moved around the kitchen too comfortably. She opened drawers without asking, scanned the medicine bottles on the counter, even checked the locks on the back door. Not like a nurse, like someone mapping the territory. After dinner, she sat across from me at the table with a notepad. "Mr. Thompson, I'll be documenting your routines. For your safety. When you wake up, when you eat, what pills you take. Just standard practice." I nodded, but inside I felt a chill. Documenting. Reporting. To who? When I went to bed, I didn't sleep. I listened. Past midnight, the creak of the floorboards gave her away. She wasn't in the guest room. She was in my office. The click of a drawer. Papers sliding. My hand tightened around the phone on my nightstand. I could storm in and catch her. But something told me not to. Better to let her think I was just an old fool snoring in his bed. Better to let her show me everything she planned. The next morning, Angela called. "So, how was your first night with Claire?" I looked at Claire, standing in my kitchen, pretending to scrub a spotless counter, her ears tilted toward the conversation. "She's attentive," I said slowly. Angela laughed, relief in her voice. "Good. Trust me, Dad, this is the best thing for you." I hung up, set the phone down, and stared at Claire. She smiled back, too fast. That was the moment I decided. If they thought they could spy on me, control me, strip me down to some helpless old man, they'd learn a lesson they'd never forget. I picked up my coffee cup, pretending to sip, while my mind began working like it hadn't in years. Cold, sharp, strategic. Step 1. Find out who she was really reporting to. Step 2. Make sure she never saw me coming. And as I watched her scribble in that notepad, documenting every move I made, I almost smiled. Because she wasn't the only one keeping records now. I started small. Always start small. When someone underestimates you, the best move is to let them keep underestimating. Claire thought she was watching me. But really, I was watching her. On Tuesday morning, I forgot to take my blood pressure pill. Slid it right under my tongue and spat it out in the sink when she wasn't looking. 10 minutes later, she was on the phone in the hallway, whispering. I moved close enough to hear. "Yes, he's already slipping. I'll keep documenting. Don't worry, Angela. He won't last long on his own." Angela. My daughter. My own flesh and blood. The words hit like an ice bath, but I stayed silent. That night, I opened the drawer where I kept my old voice recorder. Small, black, the size of a pack of gum. I'd used it years ago during audits at the bank. I slipped in fresh batteries and placed it behind the stack of books on my nightstand. One press of the button, and it would catch every word. The next day, I made another mistake. I left my checkbook on the counter, open to a blank page. When I came back from the garden, it was in a slightly different position. too subtle for anyone else to notice. But I've spent a lifetime catching the details people want to hide. I checked the pen. Ink smudges. Someone had tested it. I leaned on the counter, staring at the blank check, and muttered to myself, "Go ahead. Try me." That evening, I called an old friend, Carl Jennings, retired detective, now a private investigator. We'd met years ago when the bank was dealing with an embezzlement case. He still owed me a favor. "Carl, it's David Thompson. You busy these days?" His laugh came through the line, raspy with cigarettes. "Busy avoiding my wife's honey-do list. What's on your mind?" "I think my daughter hired someone to spy on me." Silence. Then, "You're serious?" "As a heart attack. I need you to run a background check. Name's Claire Evans. Claims to be a licensed caregiver." "Give me a day," he said. "If she's legit, I'll tell you. If she's not, you'll know." The next morning, I tested her again. I set an old insurance folder on my desk with one page sticking out. Life insurance policy, beneficiary update. A fake page I printed the night before. Just a blank form with Angela's name typed neatly on the line. I left the office door cracked and went out to the porch with my coffee. Within 10 minutes, I heard movement. Light, quick, like a cat. I waited. 5 minutes later, she appeared in the doorway, her face too casual. "Want me to fix you some breakfast, Mr. Thompson?" she asked, hands folded behind her back. "No, thank you," I said evenly. My eyes caught the corner of the folder she hadn't pushed all the way back in place. She smiled and walked away. I smiled, too, but for a different reason. That evening, Carl called. "She's no nurse, David. Real name's Claire Thomas, not Evans. 2 misdemeanors for fraud. Used to work as a receptionist at a payday loan shop in Phoenix. Got fired for skimming cash. No caregiver's license anywhere in the state." My grip on the phone tightened. "And now she's in my house." "Exactly. You want me to pay her a visit?" "Not yet," I said. "Let her keep digging. The deeper she goes, the more rope she'll hand me." That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan. Angela had brought this woman into my home. Not to care for me, not to help me, but to gather ammunition. My daughter wanted me declared incompetent. Wanted control of my accounts, my house, my life. I rolled onto my side and pressed play on the recorder. Claire's voice whispered through the static. "Yes, Angela, he's already slipping." I let the words play again and again, each time colder, harder. They thought I was the one being watched. They thought they were 3 steps ahead. But I knew something they didn't. When you spend decades catching fraudsters, you learn one thing. The moment a liar thinks he's safe, that's when you strike. And I wasn't just planning to strike back. I was planning to make them choke on every lie they'd ever told. I always believed in testing a system before you tear it down. And now the system was my own daughter, Angela, with her pet spy Claire sitting in my kitchen, scribbling notes about every breath I took. So I gave them something to chew on. Thursday morning, I brewed a second pot of coffee, strong, black, the way I like it, and accidentally left 2 envelopes on the dining table. One was marked Property Taxes 2024. The other, a folder I labeled Attorney Guardianship Forms. The first was real. The second was bait. I watched from the hallway mirror as Claire drifted past, wiping the table that didn't need wiping. Her eyes snagged the words like fishhooks. She touched the folder, just for a second, as if to confirm it was real. That night, she was on the phone again. This time her voice was sharper, lower. "Yes, Angela, I saw it. Guardianship. He must be planning something. No, I don't think he knows I looked. Yes, I'll keep watching." Perfect. I leaned back in my chair, the recorder buzzing softly from behind a stack of newspapers. Every word was mine now. Evidence. The next day, I decided to rattle them. Just a little. I asked Claire to drive me to the pharmacy. "I don't need anything," I said, pulling on my jacket. "But I want to stretch my legs." She hesitated. Her eyes flicked, calculating, but then forced a smile. "Of course, Mr. Thompson. That's what I'm here for." In the car, I played the part of the harmless old man. Talked about the weather, about how expensive gas was, about how I missed my late wife's apple pie. She nodded and murmured like a professional listener. but her grip on the steering wheel told me she was impatient. When we pulled into the pharmacy lot, I didn't head inside. I walked across to the law office 2 doors down. "Wait here," I told her. "This won't take long." The sign read Miller and Jacobs, attorneys at law. A place I knew well. I'd used them once for a property dispute. Inside, I asked the receptionist for a copy of their guardianship petition template. She printed it out without question. Lawyers don't ask why. They just bill later. When I slid back into the passenger seat, Claire's face had gone pale. "What was that about?" she asked. I folded the papers neatly, just making sure I'm prepared. At my age, you never know. Her smile faltered. She drove home in silence. That night, she made another whisper call. "Angela, he's serious. He's talking to lawyers. I think he suspects something." "No, I don't think he has proof. But he's sharper than I expected." "Good. Let them feel the ground shift." Saturday evening, Angela came by. She brought a casserole she hadn't cooked herself, store-bought, still warm from the deli. "Dad," she said, sitting too close on the couch. "We need to talk." I raised an eyebrow. "About what?" She clasped her hands, the way she used to when she wanted money in college. "About your future. About making sure you're safe. Claire says you've been forgetful, losing track of your pills, leaving documents out." I chuckled, slow and low. "Funny. I thought I was doing just fine." Angela leaned in, her voice dropping. "Dad, we're just trying to help. If you don't accept help, the court might decide you need guardianship. That's not a threat, it's reality." I let the silence stretch. Then I said, very calmly, "And whose name would be on those papers, Angela? Yours?" Her face twitched, just enough for me to see the truth. She tried to recover, patting my knee like I was a child. "Let's not argue. Think about it." I nodded slowly. "I will." When she left, I poured myself a glass of water and stared at my reflection in the kitchen window. Behind me, Claire was washing dishes, but her eyes were fixed on me like a hawk. I turned away, hiding my smile. Because in that moment, I knew something for certain. They weren't sure of me anymore. They wanted me weak. They wanted me docile. Instead, I was making them nervous. And when your enemy starts to doubt, that's when you've already won half the battle. Sunday morning came with the smell of burnt toast. Claire was in the kitchen, pretending to be useful. I watched her from my armchair, the way you'd watch a raccoon rummaging through your trash, half amusement, half disgust. "Good morning, Mr. Thompson," she sang, sliding the plate toward me. "How did you sleep?" "Like a baby," I said, biting into the toast that crunched like cardboard. "Up every 2 hours crying." She laughed politely, but her eyes stayed flat. I'd seen better acting in high school theater. I opened the morning paper, not because I cared about the headlines, but because I wanted her to think I wasn't paying attention. From behind the newsprint, I watched her slip her phone out, angle it just so, and snap a picture of my mail on the counter. The mail I'd arranged very carefully. On top sat a letter marked confidential, estate attorney. Inside was nothing but a grocery list I'd typed on my old computer. Eggs, bread, butter. A little joke for myself. Her camera clicked again. She thought she was gathering evidence. Really, she was documenting her own stupidity. By afternoon, Angela arrived. She didn't knock anymore, just strolled in like she owned the place. "Dad," she said briskly, "we need to discuss your finances." Claire hovered in the doorway, pretending to wipe her hands on a towel. Angela sat across from me, her posture stiff, rehearsed. "You've been careless, leaving important documents lying around, forgetting your medications. Claire tells me you nearly overdosed on Friday." I leaned back, folded my arms. "Funny, because Friday I didn't take a single pill, and I know exactly where each one is." Angela blinked. Just once. But I caught it. A crack in her script. "Dad," she tried again, softer now, "you need to trust us. We just want to protect you." "Protect me?" I leaned forward, lowering my voice. "Or protect my money?" Silence. Claire shifted uneasily. Angela's jaw tightened. That was when I slid the envelope across the table. "Here, since you're so worried about my estate." Angela opened it, expecting treasure. Instead, she found a single sheet of paper, a list of debts she and her husband had racked up numbers I'd pulled from public records. Credit cards, delinquent car payments, a lien on their house. Her face drained of color. Where did you get this? I smiled thinly. You forget, sweetheart, I used to be a banker. I know where to look. Claire glanced at Angela, panic flickering. I saw it. The moment they realized I wasn't the helpless old man they'd pictured. Angela stuffed the paper back in the envelope, her voice sharp. This isn't relevant. Oh, it's very relevant, I said, my tone like steel. Because it tells me why you're suddenly so interested in guardianship. You don't want to protect me. You want to rescue yourselves. Her lips parted, searching for an excuse. None came. She stood abruptly. Come on, Claire. We'll talk later. They left together, whispering harshly in the hall. The front door slammed. I sat back, the house finally quiet again. On the mantel, my late wife's photo seemed to watch me with approval. Margaret always said, "Don't let them mistake kindness for weakness." I hadn't. Not anymore. That evening, my phone buzzed. A text from Carl, the private investigator. Got more on Claire. She's been sued twice for fraud. One plaintiff says she stole personal information and opened credit cards in their name. Want me to dig deeper? I typed back. Dig until you hit bedrock. I poured myself a glass of water, lifted it in a mock toast to the empty room, and whispered, let's see how they like being the ones under surveillance. For the first time in weeks, I slept soundly. Not because I trusted them, but because I trusted myself. Carl's report landed on my desk Monday morning in a plain manila envelope. No return address. No markings. Just the way we used to pass files at the bank when an employee was under review. I slit it open with my pocket knife and began to read. Each page was another nail in Claire's coffin. No caregiver license. No medical training. 2 lawsuits for fraud, both settled quietly. A restraining order from a former employer after she tried to access client records. And the cherry on top, a history of payday loans that matched the exact timing of Angela's biggest emergencies. So that was the deal. Angela hired herself a spy with sticky fingers. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling fan turning slow circles. Margaret's voice floated back from years ago. Don't shout when you can whisper. Don't push when you can pull. They thought I'd crumble if they shoved me. But it was time to start pulling strings. That afternoon, I made my first move. I drove to First Federal Credit Union, the same branch where Angela kept her accounts, because I'd opened them for her when she was 16. Old habits die hard. I walked up to the counter, greeted the manager, and asked for a consultation room. My badge of 30 years as their senior loan officer still carried weight. Within 10 minutes, I was staring at a screen with Angela's joint account. Joint with her husband, not me. Overdrawn. Repeated fees. A mess. I didn't take anything. Didn't need to. I just wrote down the dates of her biggest overdrafts. Because I knew how to use them. Back home, I spread Carl's report across the dining table. Then I pulled out my recorder and began a new log, my voice calm, deliberate. Day 1 of countermeasures. Subject Claire Thomas, alias Evans. History of fraud. Subject Angela Thompson, daughter, motive, financial desperation. Evidence of collusion, recorded calls, observed intrusions, and financial records indicating debt. I paused, then added, objective, dismantle trust, isolate Claire, expose Angela. The next evening, I put the first part of my plan into play. Claire, I said over dinner, pushing my plate away, you've been very attentive. Almost too attentive. I'm beginning to feel smothered. Her fork froze halfway to her mouth. I'm just doing my job, Mr. Thompson. Your job, I said softly, requires a license in this state. Do you have one? For a fraction of a second, her face drained. Then she plastered on a smile. Of course I do. Angela has the paperwork. Funny, I said, standing to collect my dishes. Because I checked today? State registry. Your name wasn't there. Her eyes flicked, quick, betraying fear. You must have looked in the wrong place. Maybe, I said, rinsing my plate. But I'm very good at finding things. The silence between us stretched like barbed wire. Later that night, I left my recorder in the hallway near the vent that carried sound into the guest room. At 11:43 p.m., Claire's voice seeped through the static. Angela, he knows. He asked about my license. No, I didn't show him anything. He's smarter than you said. We need to move fast. I listened twice, then saved the file. The next morning, I made another call, this time to Adult Protective Services. Not to report myself. To ask a simple question about how to file a concern regarding fraudulent caregivers. I didn't use Claire's name, but I got what I needed. A process, a hotline, and the assurance that anonymous tips often triggered surprise visits. By noon, Claire was jumpy. She paced the kitchen, checked her phone constantly, and flinched when the doorbell rang for a package. Angela showed up that evening, tight-lipped, dragging her husband along this time. They sat me down like a panel of judges. Dad, Angela began. Claire tells me you've been difficult. You accused her of fraud. I leaned back, folded my hands. I didn't accuse her. I asked a question. If she's legitimate, why worry? Angela's husband, Mark, chimed in. Look, David, you're under stress. It's natural to get paranoid. I let the word hang in the air. Paranoid. How many clients had tried that line on me when I caught them cooking books? I stood slowly, walked to the mantel, and picked up Margaret's photo. I traced her face with my thumb, then turned back to them. You think I'm paranoid? My voice was calm, but cold enough to frost glass. Let me tell you what paranoia looks like. Paranoia is calling your daughter's debts a coincidence. Paranoia is believing a stranger who sneaks through your drawers at night. Paranoia is trusting the people who stand to gain if you're declared incompetent. Angela's face flushed crimson. Mark shifted in his chair. Claire tried to hide behind her notepad. I set the photo back in place and walked to the door. You all should leave. I'm tired. Angela's voice cracked. Dad, you can't just dismiss us like this. I opened the door wide. Watch me. They filed out, muttering. Claire's eyes lingered on me, calculating, but I saw the fear under the surface. When the door shut, the house fell silent again. I sat in my chair, listening to the old clock tick, and felt the calm settle in my chest. They were rattled. That was good. Rattled people make mistakes. And when they did, I'd be ready, with recordings, documents, and evidence stacked higher than their lies. Monday morning, the air felt different. Sharper. Charged. Like the world itself was waiting for something to snap. I spent my breakfast writing. Not letters to family. Not lists of groceries. Logs. Cold, clean logs. Dates, times, words. Claire's phone calls. Angela's visits. The moment Mark let slip that I was paranoid. Every detail went into my notebook with the precision of a banker balancing books. Because details don't lie. People do. By 10 o'clock, I dialed the hotline Adult Protective Services had given me. I disguised my voice just enough, raspy, curt. There's a woman posing as a caregiver. No license. History of fraud. She's inside the home of a 72-year-old man right now. Name's Claire Evans, though that's not her real name. The operator asked for more. I gave just enough. Not too much. I wanted them curious, not satisfied. When I hung up, I felt lighter. At noon, I called Carl. Ready to play? I asked. He chuckled. I've been waiting. What's step one? Step one, I said, is to let them think I'm making mistakes. Step two is to let someone else catch those mistakes. That evening, the knock came. Claire was setting the table when two women in gray cardigans introduced themselves at the door. Adult Protective Services, one said. Routine visit. I nearly laughed at the look on Claire's face. White as plaster. They asked questions about her license, her training, her experience. Claire stumbled. She lied. She contradicted herself. They took notes. Lots of them. Angela stormed in halfway through, her heels clacking on the hardwood. This is harassment, she snapped. My father is confused. Claire is perfectly qualified. The older APS worker raised an eyebrow. Then I'm sure you won't mind providing documentation. Proof of license. Employment history. We'll be following up. Angela's jaw clenched so tight, I thought her teeth might crack. When they left, Angela rounded on me. Did you call them? I kept my face blank. Maybe they heard something from the neighbors. People talk. Claire muttered an excuse about needing air and disappeared onto the porch, phone already pressed to her ear. Angela sat across from me, shaking with rage. Dad, you don't understand what you're doing. Oh, I understand perfectly, I said softly. You want to run my life because yours is falling apart. Her eyes flicked away, guilty. She grabbed her purse and stormed out without another word. I sat alone in the quiet house, the tick of the grandfather clock steady as a drumbeat. And for the first time in years, I felt something I thought I'd lost when Margaret died. Control. The next day, Carl handed me a flash drive. Bank records, he said. All public filings. Angela and Mark took out a second mortgage last year. They're months behind. Creditors are circling. I plugged it into my old laptop, the screen lighting up with columns of numbers. Overdue balances. Missed payments. A lawsuit pending from a credit card company. I whistled low. They're finished. Unless they get access to your accounts, Carl said. I nodded. Which they won't. That night, I staged my next test. I left my checkbook on the desk again, open to a half-written check for $20,000 made out to cash. In the memo line, gift. I went to bed early, recorder running. At 12:16 a.m., the sound came. The creak of the floorboard outside my office. The faint scrape of paper. A whispered voice, Claire's. He's going to sign it tomorrow. Angela, I swear, the check is ready. Just a little push. I smiled in the dark. Perfect. The following morning, I poured my coffee, carried it into the study, and sat at the desk as if nothing had happened. Claire hovered by the door, pretending to dust. I picked up the check, tapped my pen against it, then tore it slowly down the middle. Her face felt like glass shattering. Changed my mind, I said casually, tossing the pieces into the wastebasket. She didn't speak, didn't move, just turned and walked out, her shoulders stiff. By noon, Angela called. Dad, I think you're making reckless choices. Claire tells me. I cut her off. Claire talks too much. Silence. Heavy. Then, Dad, you're going to regret this. I laughed. Cold. No, sweetheart. You are. I hung up before she could answer. That night, I sat at the table, spreading Carl's documents beside my recorder, my notebook, and the torn check. The pieces of their plan lay there like cards in a rigged game. And for the first time, I wasn't the one being played. They'd thought they hired a nurse. They'd really hired their own executioner. Because now I had everything I needed to bring their world crashing down. They made their move on a Thursday. I'd been waiting for it, because desperate people always choose the wrong moment. Angela showed up mid-afternoon, dragging Claire in behind her like a lawyer bringing a witness. Mark followed last, carrying a leather briefcase that looked too expensive for a man drowning in debt. Dad, Angela said, her voice dripping with forced calm. We're here to settle this once and for all. It's time you signed some documents for your own protection. I leaned back in my chair, folded my hands over my stomach. Protection from what? Myself? Mark set the briefcase on the dining table and snapped it open. Legal papers. Neatly stacked, clipped, ready. It's a power of attorney, he said smoothly. Nothing scary. Just ensures your bills are paid on time. Your assets are protected. Very common at your age. Claire chimed in, her tone syrupy. It'll take the pressure off you, Mr. Thompson. No more worrying about finances. I chuckled. Slow. Low. The kind of laugh that makes people wonder if they've already lost. Pressure, I said, standing and walking to the mantel. I picked up Margaret's photo, studied it for a moment, then set it back carefully. Let me tell you about pressure. Pressure is working 60 hours a week so your daughter can go to college. Pressure is paying for her wedding when she demands more than you can afford. Pressure is watching her bring a fraud into your home and call it help. That's pressure. Angela flushed red. Dad, please, don't make this harder. Harder for who? I snapped. My voice cracked like a whip. For you? Or for me? Mark slid the papers across the table. Sign these, David. It's for the best. I stared at the pen, then at the three of them, lined up like vultures. And I smiled. Because the recorder in my pocket was already running. Because Carl was parked across the street in his sedan, camera ready. Because 2 days ago, I called my attorney, the real one, and handed him every piece of evidence I'd gathered. Fraud, debt, recorded calls, and a very neat log that would make a judge's job easy. I picked up the pen, twirled it between my fingers, then set it down. No. Angela slammed her hand on the table. You're not thinking clearly. I met her eyes. Calm. Cold. On the contrary, I've never been clearer. Claire tried a different tactic. She softened her voice, tilted her head. Mr. Thompson, we just want what's best for you. I turned to her, my smile razor thin. Funny, because Adult Protective Services doesn't agree. They're investigating you right now. Fraud. No license. Fake name. Want me to show you the file? Her face drained of color. Mark cursed under his breath, snapping the briefcase shut. Angela's voice shook with fury. You don't know what you're doing. You're going to ruin everything. I stepped closer, lowered my voice to a blade's edge. No, Angela. I'm going to ruin you. The silence that followed was heavy enough to choke the room. Finally, Angela grabbed Claire's arm and stormed toward the door. This isn't over, she hissed. I watched them leave, the door slamming behind them. Mark lingered a second longer, staring at me with a mix of hatred and fear, then followed. I stood there in the quiet house, the faint tick of the clock the only sound. My hands were steady, my breathing even. They played their hand, and I'd recorded every second of it. That night, I called Carl. Got it all, I said. They tried to force me to sign. Papers are in my house, their fingerprints all over them. Come pick them up. He whistled low. That's the nail in the coffin, David. By the time your attorney's done, they won't be able to touch you or your money. I hung up and walked to the window. Outside, the street was quiet. A dog barked in the distance. The air smelled of rain. For the first time in months, I felt free. But deep inside, I knew one thing. Angela wouldn't stop until the hammer fell. She'd try one last desperate trick. And when she did, I'd be waiting. Angela's last move came faster than I expected. 3 days after she'd stormed out, I heard the knock. Not her usual knock. This one was heavier, official. When I opened the door, 2 uniformed officers stood on the porch. Mr. Thompson? One asked. I nodded. We received a welfare check request. A family member reported concerns about your mental state. Mind if we come in? I smiled. Wide. Of course, gentlemen. Come right in. They walked through the house, asking questions. Did I remember the date? What medications did I take? Could I point out the fire extinguisher, the phone, the kitchen knives? I answered each one calmly, clearly, my voice steady as stone. When they finished, one of the officers scribbled a note on his clipboard. Mr. Thompson, you seem perfectly capable. We'll file our report. No further action. As they left, I spotted Angela's car parked half a block down, engine idling. Her face glared out from behind the windshield, pale and tight. She drove off the second she saw me step outside. That was her last card. And it failed. The very next morning, my attorney filed the packet. Recordings, financial records, Carl's background check on Claire, and the power of attorney documents they'd tried to force on me. Fraud, coercion, elder abuse. It all had a neat bow around it now. Angela didn't answer my calls, didn't answer the lawyer's letters. But I knew she'd heard. Because 2 days later, Claire vanished. Left her things in the guest room, gone without a word. Angela showed up that evening, alone. No makeup, hair messy, face drawn. She didn't knock, just walked in and stood in the middle of the living room, shaking. Dad, you destroyed us, she whispered. No, I said, standing. You destroyed yourself. I just stopped you from taking me down with you. Tears welled, but I felt nothing. Not pity, not anger, just cold distance. You'll regret this, she said hoarsely. You'll die alone. I stepped closer, lowering my voice until it was steel. Better alone than betrayed. She flinched like I'd struck her. Then she turned and stumbled out, the door slamming behind her for the last time. A week later, the bank froze her accounts pending investigation. The mortgage company filed foreclosure papers. Carl told me her husband had left, muttered something about not going down with the ship. As for me, I sat in my chair that night, Margaret's photo on the mantel catching the glow of the lamp. I poured myself a glass of water, raised it in a quiet toast. To survival, I said. The house was silent, steady. Mine again. And when I turned off the light, I whispered the words Angela would never forget, even if she tried to. Never mistake an old man for a fool.